The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as High Counselor Roberts stood at the central podium. His aged face, marked with wrinkles of wisdom, showed grave concern as he addressed the gathered representatives of 50 spacefaring species. "We have called this emergency session for one purpose," he began, his voice echoing through the vast hall. "To issue the highest level of warning regarding the species known as humans from the planet Earth." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several representatives from warrior races scoffed openly. A blue-skinned delegate from the back rows stood up without permission. "High Counselor, with all respect, the humans haven't even colonized their entire solar system. Why waste the Council's time with such matters?" His voice dripped with disdain. Roberts activated the central display, showing a holographic image of Earth. "This is precisely the kind of thinking that will lead to disaster. Our deep space monitoring stations have collected extensive data on human history. What we found has disturbed even our most seasoned analysts." The display shifted to show various scenes from Earth's history. Images of humans surviving ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters played one after another. "This species has faced extinction-level events multiple times," Roberts continued. "Each time, they not only survived but emerged stronger. Their adaptability is unprecedented in our records." Another representative, a tall, thin being with metallic skin, interrupted. "But their technology is primitive. They still use combustion engines and projectile weapons." Roberts smiled grimly. "That's what we thought too. Until our stealth probes detected this." The display showed massive underground complexes, hidden shipyards beneath ocean floors, and orbital defense platforms disguised as space debris. "They know we're watching," Roberts said softly. "They've known for decades. Every primitive technology we see them use is a choice, not a limitation." The chamber erupted in shocked discussions. Roberts waited patiently for quiet to return. "We've discovered evidence that humans were once far more advanced. For reasons unknown, they chose to start over, keeping their advanced technology hidden. Our archaeologists have found traces of their previous civilization across 300 star systems." The blue-skinned delegate who had spoken earlier sank back into his seat, his color paling significantly. "Therefore," Roberts continued, "by unanimous decision of the High Council, Earth and all human-occupied territories are now designated as absolute non-engagement zones. Any hostile action against humans will receive no support from the Council. We will not intervene if they retaliate." A small reptilian representative raised his hand. "What exactly makes them so dangerous in combat?" Roberts switched the display to show historical battle footage. "Humans have a unique trait. Most species become less effective in combat as the situation worsens. Humans become more dangerous. They call it having their backs against the wall. When facing certain defeat, instead of surrendering, they fight harder. They innovate faster. They take risks that other species would consider insane." The display showed examples of human victories against overwhelming odds throughout their history. Furthermore, Roberts added, "They're one of the few species we've encountered that deliberately trains for worst-case scenarios. They have detailed plans for scenarios that other species wouldn't even consider possible." The chamber had grown so quiet that even the environmental systems seemed loud. "Let me be absolutely clear," Roberts said, his voice hardening. "This is not a suggestion. This is not a diplomatic recommendation. This is a survival warning. Do not provoke the humans. Do not test their patience. Do not mistake their peaceful behavior for weakness." As the session ended, most representatives hurried to send warnings to their homeworlds. However, in a darker corner of the chamber, 3 delegates from aggressive species huddled together, their expressions showing skepticism and wounded pride. "Surely the Council exaggerates," one whispered. "How dangerous can one species be?" "They're making these primitives sound like gods," another added. "It's embarrassing." "Perhaps," the third said with a predatory grin, "someone should prove the Council wrong." From his podium, Roberts watched the whispering group with sad eyes. He'd seen that look before, the dangerous mixture of pride and dismissal. Some lessons, he knew, had to be learned the hard way. May whatever gods they believe in help them, he muttered to himself. They'll need it. The Crimson Fleet, notorious for their daring raids across the galaxy, gathered in the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon. 10 warships, their hulls painted deep red, positioned themselves for the attack. Their target, Earth's mining colony on Mars. Commander Stone of the Crimson Fleet stood on his bridge, admiring the gleaming ships. The Council has made humans into some kind of boogeyman, he said to his officers. But look at their defenses, ancient radar systems, primitive satellites. This will be the easiest raid of our careers. His second-in-command, Officer Reed, studied the scans. Sir, don't you think it's strange? Mars has valuable minerals, but its defenses look too weak. Stone laughed. The Council has everyone spooked over nothing. Begin the attack run. The Crimson Fleet moved swiftly, their engines flaring as they accelerated toward Mars. Their sensors showed only a handful of defensive satellites and 3 small patrol ships. As they approached Mars orbit, Stone opened a communication channel to his fleet. Remember, disable their communications first. We don't want them calling for. He never finished his sentence. The primitive satellites suddenly split apart, revealing advanced weapon systems. The patrol ships shimmered and disappeared, their holographic disguises dropping to show massive battle cruisers. Sir, Reed shouted, new contacts appearing everywhere. They're rising from the surface. Hundreds of small fighters emerged from hidden bases beneath the Martian sand. They moved with impossible speed, their formations perfect despite the chaos of sudden battle. Stone watched in horror as his mighty fleet was surrounded in seconds. Return fire. Show these primitives what real weapons can do. The Crimson Fleet launched their most powerful attacks. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space and passed harmlessly through their targets. Holograms. Stone realized too late. They're all holograms. But where's the real? The answer came from behind them. The real human fleet had used the chaos to slip behind the Crimson Fleet. Their weapons were indeed projectile-based, but not the primitive kind Stone had expected. Railguns fired magnetically accelerated rounds at near-light speed. The shots were so fast that 3 Crimson ships were destroyed before their sensors even registered the attack. Impossible. Stone gripped his command chair. Their technology. It was all a trick. Sir, they're broadcasting on all channels, Reed reported, his voice shaking. A calm human voice filled their bridge. Crimson Fleet, you have entered restricted space and demonstrated hostile intent. You were warned. You chose not to listen. These are your options. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You have 30 seconds to decide. Stone looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was gone. The survivors were surrounded by weapons they couldn't even track properly. His mighty ships, terror of a dozen star systems, had been outmaneuvered by an enemy they'd completely underestimated. Sir, Reed waited for orders, sweat dripping down his face. 20 seconds left. Stone closed his eyes. A lifetime of pride warred with survival instinct. Send the surrender signal, he finally said, his voice hollow. The human response was immediate. Surrender accepted. Power down your weapons and prepare for boarding. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction. As human troops boarded his ship, Stone watched a final message play across his screen. It was from the Galactic Council. The warning was not given to protect humans from you. It was given to protect you from humans. In the council chamber, High Counselor Roberts received the battle report. He shook his head sadly and turned to his aide. How many others are planning attacks? He asked. The Grey Alliance is gathering forces, the aide replied. They think the Crimson Fleet failed because they were too small, too poorly equipped. Roberts stared at the battle footage, watching the perfect execution of the human counterattack. Then they learned nothing from this. The Crimson Fleet wasn't defeated by superior weapons or numbers. They were defeated because humans had planned for their attack years ago. Everything, from the fake defenses to the counterattack, was rehearsed and ready. He turned off the display. Send another warning to the Grey Alliance. And when they ignore it, mark my words, the humans will make this battle look like a gentle reminder. Admiral West of the Grey Alliance stood before his assembled fleet of 200 warships. The holographic displays showed their target, the human colony system of Proxima Centauri. After the Crimson Fleet's embarrassing defeat, the Alliance had decided to show everyone how a real military force handles things. The Crimson Fleet failed because they were pirates, not soldiers, West told his commanders. We are the most powerful military force in 3 spiral arms. We will succeed where they failed. His fleet carried enough firepower to level continents. Their ships used technology centuries ahead of what humans publicly displayed. Victory seemed certain. They were wrong. The first sign of trouble came when they lost contact with their advanced scouts. Then their long-range sensors began showing conflicting readings. Some indicated massive human fleets ahead. Others showed nothing at all. They're trying to confuse us with fake signals, West announced confidently. Press forward with the attack. As they entered the Proxima Centauri system, their sensors cleared. They found exactly what their intelligence had predicted. 3 small human colonies, lightly defended. West gave the order to attack. His fleet split into 3 groups, each targeting a different colony. That's when the humans revealed their true strategy. The seemingly random sensor ghosts hadn't been random at all. Hidden in that electronic noise, human ships had maneuvered between alliance formations, splitting their fleet into isolated groups. Before West could react, his carefully organized armada had been divided into pockets of resistance. Impossible. West slammed his fist on his command console. No one could navigate through that much sensor interference. But the humans had trained for exactly this scenario. Their ships emerged from hiding, attacking from all directions at once. They didn't try to match the Alliance's firepower. Instead, they used the Alliance's own strength against them. Human vessels, smaller and more maneuverable, darted between Alliance ships, causing them to hit each other with their own weapons. The humans had studied Alliance targeting systems and knew exactly how to position themselves to make their enemies destroy themselves. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost 60 ships. Now 80. They're not even shooting at us. They're just making us shoot each other." West watched in horror as his fleet fell into chaos. Whenever his ships tried to regroup, human vessels would appear from seemingly impossible angles, forcing them to scatter again. Then came Phase 2 of the human attack. Small, automated drones swarmed his remaining ships. They didn't carry weapons. They simply attached themselves to Alliance vessels and started broadcasting confusing signals. Soon, Alliance ships couldn't tell friend from foe. "Get those things off our hulls," West ordered. But the drones had buried themselves too deep into shield generators and weapon systems. Trying to destroy them would mean damaging their own ships. Within 2 hours, the mighty Alliance fleet was reduced to scattered groups of confused, partially disabled ships, unable to fight effectively or even retreat properly. The human commander finally contacted them. "Your fleet is defeated. You cannot fight. You cannot escape. Surrender now." West stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His superior force had been completely neutralized, and the humans hadn't even used their main weapons yet. Everything had been done with electronic warfare, superior tactics, and intimate knowledge of Alliance weaknesses. "How?" he asked when the humans boarded his ship. "How did you know exactly how to counter everything we had?" The human commander smiled grimly. "We've been preparing for this fight for 50 years. Every ship in your fleet, every tactic you use, every weakness in your systems, we studied it all. While you were laughing at our primitive technology, we were learning everything about you." Back at the council, Roberts received another battle report. The Grey Alliance had lost even more spectacularly than the Crimson Fleet. "They still don't understand," he told his staff. Humans don't just prepare for the battles they expect. They prepare for every possible battle, even ones that seem impossible, and they've had centuries to prepare. He looked at the latest intelligence reports. More species were gathering their forces, each believing they would succeed where others failed. "The fools," he whispered. "They're about to learn why we fear the species that prepares for everything." The emergency council session began in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species argued loudly about the recent defeats of both the Crimson Fleet and Grey Alliance. High Counselor Roberts waited patiently until the noise died down. "You demanded answers," he began. "Now you'll get them. Dr. Banks, please show them what we found." An elderly human scientist stepped forward, carrying a small silver cube. The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. No human had ever addressed the council before. This artifact was discovered in the ruins of a civilization that vanished 50,000 years ago, Banks explained, placing the cube on the display pedestal. "It contains a warning about humanity, not about what we are now, but about what we were." The cube projected images into the air, massive space stations, planet-sized ships, and technology far beyond anything the council races possessed. "Humans weren't always confined to Earth," Banks continued. "Once we spanned thousands of star systems. We weren't just advanced, we were ancient. The civilization you see here existed before any of your species reached space." The council chamber fell completely silent. Banks activated another sequence of images, showing a terrible war against a darkness that consumed entire galaxies. "We faced an enemy that threatened all life. The details were lost to time, but the outcome is clear. We won, but at a terrible cost. Our civilization was shattered. Instead of trying to rebuild it, our ancestors made an unprecedented decision. The display showed Earth, but not as anyone knew it. The continents were different, the oceans larger. They chose to start over," Banks said softly. "They wiped their own memories, rebuilt Earth's surface, and began again as primitive hunters and gatherers. But they left themselves safeguards and buried technology, meant to be rediscovered only if truly needed." A representative stood up. "Why? Why would any species choose to forget such power?" Banks smiled sadly. "Because we learned that advancement without wisdom leads to destruction. Our ancestors wanted us to evolve naturally, to rediscover technology at our own pace, to learn the lessons they had learned too late." He showed more images, hidden bases throughout human territory, ancient defense systems in sleep mode, and technology that seemed to defy physics itself. "We've known about our history for centuries," Banks continued. "Each generation of humans rediscovers a little more. We keep most of our advanced technology hidden, using only what we need. We remember the lesson. Power isn't as important as knowing when not to use it." The council representatives watched in stunned silence as Banks showed them proof after proof. Archaeological sites, ancient documents, and working technology that should have been impossible. "The reason we appear primitive isn't because we are," Banks explained. "It's because we choose to be. We develop our technology slowly and carefully, making sure we understand the consequences before moving forward." He turned to face the assembly directly. "Those who attacked us forced us to reveal more than we wanted to. The defeats they suffered were delivered using only a fraction of our capabilities. We hoped the demonstration would be enough." Robert stepped forward again. "Now you understand why the warning was given. Humanity isn't dangerous because they're primitive. They're dangerous because they have the power of gods but choose to live like mortals until someone forces them to remember who they really are." A younger representative raised his hand. "But if humans have all this power, why don't they rule the galaxy?" Banks chuckled softly. "Because we remember what happened the last time we tried to shake the destiny of other species. We learned that true wisdom sometimes means having power and choosing not to use it." As the session ended, the council representatives left in thoughtful silence. The images of ancient human achievements had shaken their confidence in everything they thought they knew. Roberts turned to Banks. Will this be enough to stop the others who are planning attacks? Banks shook his head. No. Some will convince themselves it's all elaborate trickery. They'll need more direct proof. And they'll get it, Roberts sighed. At what cost, I wonder? The cost of pride, Banks replied, is always higher than the cost of wisdom. The silver cube continued its display, showing scenes of human history, both the history everyone knew and the hidden history that was about to become very relevant again. The star maps in the Council's emergency command center blazed with red warning signals. Despite the revelations about humanity's true nature, 3 more alien alliances had launched simultaneous attacks on human space. They believed that if they struck together, they could overwhelm any defenses. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. In the darkness of space around Earth's solar system, ancient defense platforms began to wake up. Their surfaces, disguised as asteroids for centuries, cracked open like enormous metal eggs. Inside, weapon systems powered up for the first time in millennia. They're activating the deep sleep protocols, High Counselor Roberts observed, watching the tactical displays with growing awe. After all these years, across human territory, similar transformations were taking place. What appeared to be ordinary mountains split apart, revealing massive hangars. Desert sands shifted, uncovering launch sites that stretched for miles. Entire moons turned out to be hollow, their cores filled with dormant fleets. The alien forces had no warning. One moment they were advancing confidently toward their targets. The next, their sensors detected thousands of new contacts appearing from impossible locations. It's like watching history wake up, Roberts whispered. On Mars, the ground itself seemed to come alive. The red sands parted to reveal cities that had slept in darkness for 50,000 years. Ancient factories hummed to life, beginning production of weapons that hadn't been seen since humanity's first civilization. The human response was devastating in its efficiency. Their ships didn't just appear, they emerged in perfect formation, using maneuvers practiced and perfected over centuries of preparation. Each vessel knew its exact role. Each weapon had a specific target. From his command post on Luna Base, Admiral White watched the activation sequence complete itself. All dormant units are now online, he reported to Earth Command. The Heritage Fleet is awake. The Heritage Fleet, humanity's hidden armada of ships combining both their ancient knowledge and modern innovations. Ships that could bend space, create temporary wormholes, and harness the power of stars themselves. The alien fleets found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Human vessels appeared inside their formations through artificial wormholes, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before they could respond. Sir, a young officer reported to White, the Centauri defense grid is fully operational. The Arcturus platforms are online. The Jupiter shipyards are. Sir, they're growing new ships using the ancient protocols. Growing ships, another forgotten technology now remembered. Vessels that could repair themselves, adapt to enemy weapons, and evolve during battle. Begin synchronized operations, White ordered. Show them why our ancestors were both loved and feared. The battle, if it could even be called that, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships danced through space like water droplets in zero gravity, each movement perfectly calculated. Their weapons didn't just destroy, they altered the fabric of space-time itself. Alien ships found themselves trapped in temporal bubbles where time moved so slowly that battles were over before they could fire a single shot. Others discovered their weapons passing harmlessly through human vessels that existed partially in other dimensions. From the council chamber, Roberts watched the display with a mixture of awe and terror. Now you understand, he told the assembled representatives. This is why the warning was given. Not because humans are cruel or aggressive, but because they possess power we can barely comprehend. The attacking fleets never had a chance. Within hours, they were completely neutralized, not destroyed. Humans carefully disabled their ships and captured their crews. Even with godlike power at their disposal, They chose restraint. As the battles ended, the ancient systems began powering down again. Mountains closed, seas calmed, and desert sands covered the proof of humanity's true nature. Only the Heritage Fleet remained active, a reminder of what lurked beneath the surface of human space. "Let this be the final lesson," Roberts announced to the Council. "Humans don't show their true strength out of wisdom, not weakness. They hide their power not because they must, but because they choose to. And those who force them to reveal it never forget what they've seen." In the depths of space, the ancient defense platforms resumed their disguise as simple asteroids, waiting once again for the day they might be needed. The holding cells aboard Luna Base held an unusual gathering. Fleet commanders from the defeated alien forces sat in comfortable but secure rooms, watching recordings of their own defeat. Admiral White had ordered these screenings not as punishment, but as education. Commander Pike of the Desert Winds Coalition was the first to break the stunned silence. "We never had a chance, did we? All our planning, our superior numbers, it meant nothing." The recording showed how completely the human forces had dominated the battle. Scenes of ships phasing through solid matter, weapons that bent reality, and defenses that seemed to predict attacks before they happened. In another cell, General Thunder of the Star Empire watched his mighty dreadnought being disabled by a human vessel 1/10 its size. The human ship had simply ignored his most powerful weapons, the energy beams passing through it like it wasn't even there. "My Emperor claimed humans were lying about their ancient origins," Thunder muttered. "He said no species would choose to hide such power. Now I understand. They didn't hide it out of fear. They hid it out of responsibility." Down the corridor, the remains of the Grey Alliance leadership faced their own harsh reality. Their military was in shambles, their reputation destroyed, not by brutal conquest, but by precise and measured responses that left their forces disabled, but largely unharmed. Admiral White entered the detention area, carrying status reports. The alien leaders stood at attention, not out of protocol, but out of newfound respect. "Your forces have been disabled, not destroyed," White explained. "Your crews are safe and will be returned to you. We've even repaired most of the damage to your ships." Pike stepped forward. "Why show such mercy? You could have destroyed us all." White's expression was solemn. "Because the lesson our ancestors learned wasn't about power. It was about wisdom. Destroying you would have been easy. Teaching you is more important." The screen showed new images: human emergency ships rescuing ejected alien crew members, medical teams treating the injured regardless of species, engineers carefully disabling rather than destroying enemy vessels. "Your weapons were advanced," Thunder observed, "but your restraint was even more impressive." White nodded. "Power without compassion leads to destruction. Our ancestors nearly destroyed themselves before learning this. We won't repeat their mistakes." In the council chamber, reports arrived from across the galaxy. Species that had considered attacking humans were dismantling their war fleets. Aggressive empires were suddenly eager to establish peaceful relations. The display of human power, and more importantly, human restraint, had changed the political landscape overnight. "The defeated commanders are being released," Roberts announced to the council. "Their ships will be returned, their crews unharmed. Humanity asks nothing in return except a promise of peace." A younger representative spoke up. "But how can we trust a species with such power?" "Because they've had this power all along," Roberts replied. "They could have conquered us centuries ago. Instead, they chose to live simply, to advance slowly, to trade and learn and grow alongside us. That's not the behavior of conquerors." Back at Luna Base, White prepared to release the alien commanders. Each had been given detailed records of the battle, not as a warning, but as a lesson in the price of pride. "Remember," White told them, "we didn't reveal our true capabilities because we wanted to. You forced our hand. We would have preferred to remain as we were, just another species finding its way in the galaxy." Pike, preparing to board his restored ship, turned back. Will you hide it all again? Go back to pretending to be less than you are? White smiled. Some of it, yes. Power isn't meant to be displayed. It's meant to be preserved for when it's truly needed. Your people now understand why. That understanding is worth more than any victory. As the alien commanders departed, they carried with them not just the memory of defeat, but a deeper lesson. They had learned that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to choose not to. The ancient defense systems began their slow return to dormancy, their brief awakening serving as both warning and teaching. Humanity had revealed their true nature not to dominate, but to educate. Sometimes, the greatest victory is showing mercy when you don't have to. 1 year after the Great Battle, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Human representatives now sat openly among the other species, no longer hiding their true nature. High Counselor Roberts stood at the podium, addressing the largest gathering in Council history. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, he began. For the first time, humanity has agreed to share certain aspects of their knowledge with the Council races. Dr. Banks stepped forward again, but this time he wasn't alone. With him stood representatives from every major species that had once opposed humanity. We've spent centuries watching, learning, and growing alongside you, Banks explained. We knew about every species long before they discovered us. We studied your cultures, learned your languages, and understood your ways. The main display showed footage from Earth's hidden archives, centuries of peaceful observation, careful documentation of alien civilizations, and countless decisions not to interfere even when humanity could have conquered all. Our ancestors left us more than just technology, Banks continued. They left us wisdom. They taught us that power without understanding leads to chaos. That's why we chose to develop alongside you, to learn and grow naturally, rather than simply dominating through superior technology. Former Commander Pike, now serving as a liaison between his people and Earth, stood to speak. I once thought humans were primitive. Now I understand. They were advanced enough to know when not to show their advancement. The Council chamber's displays showed new images, human scientists working with alien researchers, sharing carefully chosen technologies that would benefit all species. Not weapons or power sources, but medical advances, environmental restoration techniques, and sustainable development methods. We're not here to rule, Banks assured them. We're here to help all species grow together. Our ancestors taught us that true civilization isn't measured by its power, but by its wisdom in using that power. General Thunder, also now a liaison, addressed his former enemies. They could have conquered us all. Instead, they chose to teach us. They defeated us not through destruction, but through understanding. The Council voted unanimously to establish new protocols. Humanity would help guide the development of younger civilizations, sharing their experience while carefully avoiding the mistakes of their ancient past. But what about your hidden powers? A young representative asked. Will you keep them secret? Admiral White, representing Earth's military forces, stepped forward. Some technologies aren't meant to be shared until all species are ready for them. Our ancestors learned this the hard way. We won't repeat their mistakes. The chamber filled with approving murmurs. The species that had once feared or dismissed humans now looked to them for guidance, not because they had to, but because they chose to. Roberts called for the final vote. The Council recognizes humanity not just as members, but as teachers. Their experience, both ancient and modern, will help guide us all toward a better future. The vote was unanimous. As the session ended, Banks shared one final piece of wisdom from humanity's past. Our ancestors faced a choice: rule through power or lead through wisdom. They chose wisdom, and so do we. The galaxy doesn't need conquerors. It needs teachers, guides, and friends. White added, our greatest strength isn't our technology or our ancient knowledge. It's our understanding that power isn't meant to dominate, but to protect and nurture. As the Council session concluded, the gathered representatives watched Earth's defense systems return to their dormant state. The Heritage Fleet settled back into its hidden docks, the ancient weapons powered down, and humanity once again appeared as just another species among many. But now everyone understood. This wasn't deception, but choice. Humans had learned to wear their power lightly, to guard their knowledge carefully, and to share their wisdom generously. Roberts looked out at the changed council chamber. Former enemies now allies, ancient fears now turned to respect, and the promise of a future where all species could grow together. The council ordered no war with humans, he reflected. Those who ignored that wisdom paid a price, not in destruction, but in understanding. And that understanding has given us all a better path forward. In the depths of space, Earth's ancient guardians returned to their slumber, no longer needed in a galaxy that had finally learned to value wisdom over power.